There is a moment, suspended in time, when a hand reaches toward you with something you need. Water when you are thirsty, shelter when you are cold, words when you are breaking. And in that moment, something ancient awakens inside you. Not gratitude alone, something deeper, something that binds, something that makes you owe. This is not a story about evil. This is a story about the most elegant form of control ever designed by human consciousness. This is about kindness, and the price it extracts from those who receive it. Watch closely. A child falls on the playground, scraped knee, tears forming, and then from across the yard, another child approaches. Not the closest one, not the one who was playing nearby, but one who saw, one who calculated. This child kneels down, offers a hand, speaks softly. The wounded child looks up, eyes wet, and in that gaze something transfers. The helper smiles, not with cruelty, with something far more complex, with the knowledge that a debt has just been created, a debt that has no invoice, no due date, but exists nonetheless, floating in the space between two human hearts. This is where it begins, not in boardrooms or palaces, but in playgrounds and living rooms, in the small exchanges we call kindness, in the moments we are taught to cherish as proof of human goodness. But what if goodness itself is the most sophisticated mask ever worn? What if the hand that helps is also the hand that holds the leash? Before we continue, a warning. The knowledge that is about to be shared cannot be unlearned. It will permanently change the way you see human relationships. If you are ready to abandon comfortable illusions and see what is behind the stage, subscribe now. Because this is not just a video. It is the beginning of your journey under the mask. Now let us begin. There was a woman named Elena. She lived in a small apartment in a city that never quite woke up and never quite slept. The kind of place where people knew each other's names but not each other's truths. Elena worked at a nonprofit. She helped people. That was her identity. That was her armor. Every morning, she would arrive early, make coffee for the entire office, remember everyone's preferences. Cream and 2 sugars for Marcus. Black for Jennifer. Oat milk for the new intern, whose name she memorized on day 1. She would smile. She would ask about weekends and children and sick parents. She would listen with her whole body tilted forward, eyes locked, nodding at precisely the right moments. And people loved her. Of course they did. Who would not love someone who remembers? Who cares? Who gives without asking? But here is what they did not see. Here is what happens in the space between the giving and the gratitude. Every act of kindness Elena performed was a thread, and with each thread she wove a web. Not consciously, perhaps, not with malice, but with something deeper than consciousness, with instinct. The instinct that understands power does not announce itself with force. Power whispers. Power serves. Power makes itself indispensable. 6 months into her position, Elena knew things. She knew that Marcus was having trouble with his teenage daughter. She knew that Jennifer's marriage was fracturing. She knew that the intern was struggling with student debt and skipping meals. And because she knew she could give. A listening ear for Marcus. A sympathetic smile for Jennifer. Leftover lunch, casually offered, for the intern. Each gift perfectly calibrated. Each gesture landing exactly where the wound was open. And then, slowly, imperceptibly, the office began to reorganize itself around Elena. Not officially, not on any chart, but in the invisible architecture of human loyalty. When decisions were made, people looked to her. When conflicts arose, people sought her opinion. She never demanded this. She never asked. But she had created a system where her absence would be felt like a missing organ, where her disapproval would sting like rejection from a mother, where her kindness had become the currency that everyone needed and only she could distribute. This is the first law of elegant manipulation. Make them need you by filling needs they did not know they had. Create the hunger by offering the feast. And then, without ever saying it, without ever demanding it, watch as they begin to shape themselves around your comfort, around your approval, around your continued generosity. But Elena is not a villain in this story. That is the trap of simple thinking, the trap of believing that manipulation requires malice. Elena believed she was good. She believed her actions were pure. And perhaps, in some dimension of her consciousness, they were. But beneath belief, beneath the stories we tell ourselves, there is the machinery of the psyche. And that machinery does not care about our intentions. It cares about survival, about status, about the ancient game of who holds power and who surrenders it. Carl Jung spoke of the shadow, the part of us we do not see, the part we exile into darkness because it contradicts the image we need to maintain. Elena's shadow was not cruelty. It was control, the need to be needed, the terror of being ordinary, of being replaceable. And so her kindness, genuine as it felt, was also a defense. A way to ensure that she would never be abandoned, never be forgotten, never be powerless. Watch what happens when someone in Elena's orbit tries to establish independence. When Marcus, after months of her support, begins to resolve his issues with his daughter and stops seeking Elena's counsel. Watch how Elena's face changes. Not dramatically, not with anger, but with something subtle. A slight cooling, a withdrawal of warmth. She does not stop being kind, but her kindness becomes measured, rationed, and Marcus feels it. He cannot name it. He cannot point to a specific moment or action, but he feels the chill, and without understanding why, he finds himself seeking her out again, sharing a new problem, a new vulnerability, and when he does, the warmth returns. The sun comes back out, and Marcus learns, without ever being taught, that Elena's love is conditional, that it flows when he is weak and ebbs when he is strong. This is the second law. Kindness that creates dependency is kindness that fears equality. It is the kindness of the parent who cannot let the child grow, the friend who cannot celebrate your success, the partner who loves you most when you are broken, because your brokenness confirms their necessity, your weakness validates their strength, and your gratitude becomes the mirror in which they see themselves as good. But let us go deeper. Let us travel back, not to Elena's office, but to the origin, to the moment when kindness first learned to wear a mask. Picture a village, thousands of years ago, before cities, before laws written on paper, a time when survival was not guaranteed, when winter could mean death, when the group was everything and exile was a sentence worse than violence. In this village there is a man. Let us call him the first giver. He has more than others. Perhaps he is a better hunter. Perhaps he is stronger. Perhaps he simply got lucky. And he makes a choice. He shares. He gives meat to the family that has none. He offers shelter to the widow. He helps the injured man. And the village watches. The village remembers. And in their remembering, something shifts. The giver is no longer just a man. He is a benefactor, a protector. And with that shift comes power. Not the power of the fist, but the power of the debt, the power of obligation. When decisions are made about where to hunt, whose voice carries weight. The givers. When conflicts arise about resources, who mediates? The giver. When threats come from outside, who do they protect first? The giver. Because to lose him is to lose the source. To anger him is to risk the withdrawal of his generosity. And so, without ever raising his voice, without ever making a threat, the giver has become the chief. Not through violence, through kindness. This is not a cynical observation. This is anthropology. This is the archaeology of human behavior. Kindness, in its origin, was a strategy, a brilliant one, more effective than force because it does not create visible enemies. It creates grateful subjects, and grateful subjects police themselves. They do not need to be controlled. They control each other. They enforce the debt among themselves. They shame anyone who does not show proper gratitude. They build the prison and then volunteer to be its guards. And here is the terrible beauty of it. The giver may not even know what he is doing. He may genuinely feel compassion. He may truly want to help. But the outcome is the same. Power accumulates. Influence grows. And the social structure bends around his generosity like gravity bends around mass. Fast forward, through centuries, through the rise of civilizations, through religions and philosophies and political systems, and watch how this pattern repeats. Watch how every empire, every church, every institution of power has learned the lesson of the first giver. That control is most effective when it feels like care. That obedience is most complete when it is given voluntarily, when it is given out of love. The Romans understood this. Bread and circuses. Feed the people. Entertain them. And they will not revolt. They will cheer for you. The church understood this. Charity. Hospitals. Schools. Give to the poor. Care for the sick. And they will give you their souls. Their obedience. Their children. Modern corporations understand this. Employee wellness programs. Free snacks. Casual Fridays. Make them comfortable. Make them grateful. And they will work longer hours, sacrifice more, blur the line between their identity and the company's mission. This is not conspiracy. This is pattern. This is the code that runs beneath the surface of human civilization. kindness as strategy, generosity as investment, care as control. But let us return to the intimate, to the personal, because this is not just about institutions. This is about you, about me, about the relationships we navigate every day, about the masks we wear and the masks we fail to see on others. There is a friendship. Two women. Let us call them Sarah and Michelle. They have known each other since college. 20 years of history. 20 years of shared secrets and late-night conversations, and being there for each other. Sarah is the strong one, the one who has her life together. Good job. Stable relationship. Clear sense of direction. Michelle is the one who struggles. Relationships that implode. Jobs that do not work out. A persistent sense that life is happening to her rather than being shaped by her. And Sarah is always there, always ready with advice, with a couch to crash on, with money to borrow, with patience that seems infinite. Michelle is grateful. Of course she is. She tells Sarah constantly, "You are my rock. I do not know what I would do without you. You are the best friend anyone could have." And Sarah smiles, hugs her, says that is what friends are for. But watch what happens when Michelle starts therapy. When she begins to untangle the patterns that have kept her stuck. When she starts to build something stable. A relationship that does not explode. A job she does not quit. A sense of agency. Watch how the dynamic shifts. Sarah is still supportive. Still says the right things. But there is something underneath. A tension. A discomfort. When Michelle shares a success, Sarah's congratulations feel slightly hollow. When Michelle talks about her therapist's insights, Sarah subtly questions them. Not overtly. Not with hostility. But with concern. Are you sure this therapist knows what they are talking about? Are you sure you are not changing too fast? Are you sure you are still you? And Michelle feels it. The confusion. Because Sarah is her friend. Sarah has been there for her. Sarah loves her. So why does Sarah's support feel like it is laced with something else? Why does Michelle's growth seem to create distance rather than celebration? Here is why. Because Sarah's identity has been built on being the strong one, the helper, the one who has it together. And Michelle's role has been to be the one who needs help, the one who validates Sarah's strength by contrast. This is not conscious. Sarah would be horrified to hear it articulated this way. But the shadow does not need consciousness to operate. It operates in the space beneath words, in the micro-expressions, in the tone that shifts, in the advice that subtly undermines rather than empowers. Sarah's kindness has been real, but it has also been a way to maintain a hierarchy, a way to ensure that she is needed, that she is superior, that she has purpose. And when Michelle begins to level the playing field, when she begins to need Sarah less, the foundation of their friendship cracks. Because it was never built on equality. It was built on complementary weaknesses, on a silent agreement that Sarah would be the giver and Michelle would be the receiver. And when Michelle violates that agreement by becoming whole, the friendship does not know how to survive. This is the third law. Examine the kindness that cannot celebrate your independence, that feels threatened by your growth, that loves you most when you are small. Because that kindness is not about you. It is about the giver's need to be necessary. And you are not a person in that dynamic. You are a function, a role, a mirror that reflects back the image they need to see. Now let us turn the mirror. Let us ask the question that makes us uncomfortable. Are you Sarah? Are you Elena? Are you the giver whose kindness comes with invisible strings? Before you answer, before you defend, sit with the discomfort. Because the shadow does not reveal itself to those who are not willing to look. Think about the people in your life who depend on you, who come to you with their problems, who seek your advice, who call you when they are breaking. How do you feel when they are struggling? Be honest. Beneath the compassion, beneath the genuine desire to help, is there not also a small satisfaction? A sense of being needed, of being important, of having a role that confirms your value? And when they start to figure things out, when they stop calling as much, when they find other sources of support, how does that feel? Is there relief? Or is there a small, quiet sense of loss, of rejection, of being replaced? This is not about judging yourself. This is about seeing yourself, because we are all wearing masks. We are all performing roles that we believe make us good, make us lovable, make us safe. And one of the most seductive masks is the mask of the helper, the kind one, the generous one, because that mask is socially rewarded. It is praised. It is held up as virtue. And so we wear it without questioning what it hides, without asking what needs it serves, without examining whether our kindness liberates or binds. Machiavelli wrote that it is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. But he also understood something deeper. That love, when strategically deployed, is more powerful than fear. Because fear creates resistance. Fear creates the desire to escape. But love, or what appears to be love, creates loyalty. Creates the desire to stay. To please. To earn more of that precious commodity. And so the wise prince, the effective manipulator, does not rule through terror. He rules through generosity, through kindness, through creating a population that feels indebted, that feels grateful, that polices itself out of love rather than fear. This is the dark heart of the matter. Kindness can be the most effective form of control precisely because it does not feel like control. It feels like care. It feels like love. And so the recipient does not resist, does not question, does not see the cage being built around them with threads of gratitude and obligation. But here is where it becomes even more complex, even more layered, because not all kindness is manipulation. Not all generosity is strategy. There is such a thing as genuine care, genuine compassion, genuine desire to help without expectation of return. The question is, how do you tell the difference? How do you distinguish between the kindness that liberates and the kindness that binds? The answer lies in what happens next, in what the kindness enables. Does it empower the receiver to become independent, to grow, to eventually not need the giver? Or does it create a cycle of dependency, a pattern where the receiver must keep returning, keep needing, keep being grateful? Liberating kindness gives and then steps back. It offers tools, not solutions. It empowers rather than rescues. It celebrates when the receiver no longer needs it. Binding kindness gives and then hovers. It offers solutions that create new problems. It rescues in ways that prevent growth. It feels threatened when the receiver becomes independent. There is a father. Let us call him Robert. He has a son, 25 years old. The son wants to start a business. It is risky. It might fail. Robert has the money to help. And he does. He invests. He gives advice. He opens doors. He is there for every crisis, every setback, every moment of doubt. And the son is grateful. He tells his father constantly, "I could not do this without you. You are amazing. Thank you." But watch closely. Watch what happens when the son makes a decision Robert disagrees with. When the son wants to take the business in a direction Robert thinks is wrong. Robert does not forbid it. He does not pull his money. He does something more subtle. He expresses concern. He reminds the son of all he has invested. He asks, "Are you sure? Are you really sure?" And in that question, in that tone, there is weight. The weight of debt. The weight of obligation. The weight of all that kindness that has been given and now, implicitly, must be repaid with obedience. The son feels it. The pressure. The guilt. And he changes his decision. Not because he agrees with his father, but because he cannot bear the thought of disappointing the man who has given him so much, who has been so kind, so generous, so supportive. And Robert feels satisfied, not because he is cruel, but because the natural order has been maintained. Because his kindness has purchased what kindness always purchases when it is strategic. Influence, control, the shaping of another's choices to align with your vision. This is the fourth law. Beware the gift that comes with an invisible price tag, the help that is given freely but expected to be repaid in compliance. The generosity that is measured not by what it gives but by what it extracts. Because true generosity has no memory. It gives and forgets. It does not keep score. It does not remind. It does not use past kindness as leverage for future control. But most of us are not capable of true generosity. Not consistently. Not without ego. Because we are human. And humans are status-seeking creatures. We are creatures who need to matter. Who need to be significant. Who need to have impact. And kindness, when it is witnessed, when it is acknowledged, when it is rewarded with gratitude and loyalty, becomes one of the most effective ways to achieve significance. To matter. To have impact. So we give, and in giving we bind. We create relationships that are not between equals, but between benefactor and beneficiary. Between savior and saved. Between the one who has and the one who needs. And we call this love. We call this friendship. We call this family. But underneath, in the machinery that we do not examine, it is also power. It is also hierarchy. It is also control. And the tragedy is that both parties often believe the story. The giver believes they are purely motivated by care. The receiver believes they are purely experiencing gratitude. Neither sees the transaction. Neither acknowledges the exchange. Neither names the dynamic. And so it continues, generation after generation, relationship after relationship, the oldest manipulation, the most elegant control, kindness. But let us complicate this further. Let us enter the realm where intention and outcome divorce completely, where the giver is not consciously manipulating, but the effect is manipulation nonetheless, where the kindness is genuine in feeling but toxic in function. There is a mother. Let us call her Diana. She loves her daughter with a fierce, consuming love, the kind of love that would walk through fire, that would sacrifice anything, that would die to protect. This is not performance. This is not strategy. This is the raw, primal bond that biology creates. Diana's love is real, but watch what it does. The daughter is 8 years old. She wants to climb a tree. Diana sees danger, sees broken bones, sees emergency rooms. And so she says no, not with anger, with concern, with love. Sweetheart, you might fall. You might get hurt. Let me help you. Let me keep you safe. And the daughter, who trusts her mother, who loves her mother, accepts this. Does not climb the tree. The daughter is 12. She wants to go to a sleepover at a friend's house. Diana does not know the parents well, does not know if they will supervise properly, does not know if her daughter will be safe. And so she says no, not with control, with worry, with love. Honey, I just want to make sure you are okay. Maybe next time, when I know them better. And the daughter, who does not want to worry her mother, who loves her mother, accepts this. Does not go to the sleepover. The daughter is 16. She wants to try out for the school play, but she has never acted before. Diana sees potential failure, sees rejection, sees her daughter's heart breaking. And so she says, are you sure? Maybe you should wait. Maybe you should try something you are better at. I just do not want to see you disappointed. And the daughter, who trusts her mother's judgment, who loves her mother, accepts this. Does not try out for the play. The daughter is 22. She has graduated college. She has a job offer in another city, far from home. Diana feels the distance like a physical wound, feels the fear of separation, of not being needed, of not being able to protect. And so she says, but what about your family? What about staying close? What about all the opportunities here? I just want you to be happy. I just want you to be safe. And the daughter, who has learned that her mother's worry is a form of love, who has learned that independence causes pain, who has learned that her role is to stay small and safe and close, accepts this. Does not take the job. Now the daughter is 30. She is depressed. She is anxious. She does not know why. She has done everything right. She has been good. She has been safe. She has stayed close to her mother, who loves her so much. But she feels trapped. She feels like she is living someone else's life. She feels like she never learned to trust herself, to take risks, to fail and survive, to be separate, to be whole. And Diana does not understand. She has given everything. She has loved with every fiber of her being. She has protected and cared and sacrificed. How can her daughter be unhappy? How can her daughter feel trapped? Diana's intentions were pure. Her love was real. But the outcome is the same as if she had been consciously manipulating. The daughter has been shaped, controlled, kept small, not through cruelty, through kindness, through care, through love that could not let go. This is the fifth law. The most dangerous manipulation is the one that does not know it is manipulating. The control that believes it is care. The cage that believes it is shelter. Because when the giver is unconscious of their own shadow, when they genuinely believe they are acting from pure love, there is no conversation to be had, no negotiation, no possibility of change. The daughter cannot say, you are controlling me, because the mother will respond, with genuine hurt, I am loving you. And both will be telling the truth. Both will be describing the same behavior from different angles. And the daughter will be left with an impossible choice. Accept the control or reject the love. Stay small or break the bond. This is why Jung insisted on shadow work, on the necessity of seeing what we do not want to see in ourselves. Because our unconscious motivations do not disappear simply because we are unaware of them. They operate, they shape, they control. And the people around us pay the price for our refusal to look, for our insistence that our intentions are pure and therefore our actions must be harmless. But intentions are not outcomes. The road to every cage is paved with good intentions. The chains that bind most tightly are forged from care. And the people who damage us most deeply are often the ones who love us most completely. Because love without awareness is dangerous. Love without boundaries is consuming. Love that cannot tolerate separation is not love. It is need. It is fear. It is the desperate attempt to control an uncontrollable world by controlling the people in it. And we are all Diana. In some relationship, in some dynamic, we are all giving kindness that binds rather than liberates. We are all loving in ways that serve our needs more than the needs of the beloved. We are all wearing the mask of the good person, the caring person, the generous person, while our shadow operates beneath, shaping outcomes that serve our unconscious agenda. The agenda to be needed, to be important, to be irreplaceable, to matter so much that we can never be left. Now let us shift perspective entirely. Let us look at this from the other side, from the position of the receiver. Because this is not just about the givers. This is about the receivers who participate in the dance, who accept the kindness, who wear the chains, who stay in the cage. Why? Why do we accept kindness that binds? Why do we not resist? Why do we not see the manipulation and walk away? The answer is complex, layered, uncomfortable, because receiving kindness that binds serves us too. It absolves us of responsibility. It allows us to stay dependent, to stay small, to avoid the terror of autonomy, to avoid the risk of failure, to avoid the burden of making our own choices and living with the consequences. There is a man. Let us call him Thomas. He is in a relationship with a woman who takes care of everything. She manages the finances. She makes the social plans. She decides where they live, what they eat, how they spend their time. She is not cruel about it. She is kind. She says she is just better at these things. She says she does not mind. She says she wants to take care of him. And Thomas accepts this. He tells himself he is lucky. He tells himself she is amazing. He tells himself he is grateful. But beneath the gratitude, there is something else. There is relief. Relief that he does not have to make decisions. Relief that he does not have to take responsibility. Relief that if things go wrong, it is not his fault. He has outsourced his agency. He has traded his autonomy for comfort, for security, for the kindness of someone who will manage his life, so he does not have to. And this works, for years, until one day, Thomas wakes up and realizes he does not know who he is. He does not know what he wants. He does not know how to make a decision without checking with her first. He has become a passenger in his own life. And he is angry. But who is he angry at? Her for taking control? Or himself for giving it away? Both. Neither. The dynamic. The dance. The unspoken agreement that she would be the strong one, and he would be the grateful one. The agreement that her kindness would be his cage, and he would call it love. This is the sixth law. We accept the kindness that binds because it serves our cowardice, our fear, our desire to avoid the full weight of being human. Being human is terrifying. It means making choices without certainty. It means failing and having no one to blame. It means standing alone and being responsible for the shape of your life. And so we trade that terror for the comfort of dependence, for the kindness of someone who will carry us. And we call it love. We call it gratitude. We call it being cared for. But it is also abdication. It is also the surrender of self. It is also a form of death. And the giver and the receiver are locked in a dance, each serving the other's shadow, each enabling the other's fear. The giver gets to feel needed, important, superior. The receiver gets to avoid responsibility, risk, autonomy. And both get to believe they are in a loving relationship. Both get to wear the mask of the good partner, the caring partner, the devoted partner. While beneath, the machinery of mutual manipulation hums along, invisible, unexamined, unchallenged. Until it breaks. Until someone wakes up. Until the pain of staying becomes greater than the fear of leaving. Until the cage becomes visible and unbearable. And then there is crisis. There is conflict. There is the terrible work of disentangling, of seeing what was really happening beneath the story of love, of acknowledging the manipulation, the control, the ways both parties were using each other. And this work is brutal, because it requires letting go of the identities that felt so good, so righteous, so pure. It requires seeing yourself not as the hero of the story, but as a participant in a dynamic that was toxic for both of you. But here is the paradox. Here is the twist that makes this even more complex. Sometimes the kindness that binds is necessary. Sometimes dependency is appropriate. Sometimes control is care. A parent must control a toddler, must bind them with rules and boundaries and the kindness that says no, because a toddler cannot be autonomous, cannot be responsible for their own safety. cannot make choices that serve their long-term well-being. The parent's kindness must bind, must limit, must control. And this is not manipulation. This is development. This is love that understands the child is not yet ready for full autonomy. The question is not whether kindness should ever bind. The question is whether it knows when to let go, whether it evolves as the receiver grows, whether it can tolerate the transition from dependency to autonomy, whether it can celebrate the moment when it is no longer needed. Because that is the test. That is the distinction between care and control. Care lets go. Control holds on. Care evolves. Control freezes. Care celebrates independence. Control punishes it. And most of us fail this test. Most of us hold on too long. Most of us cannot tolerate the loss of being needed. Most of us turn our care into control without noticing the transition. Without seeing the moment when what was appropriate becomes toxic. When what was necessary becomes manipulative. When what was love becomes possession. Now let us examine the cultural dimension. Because this is not just personal. This is not just about individual relationships. This is about how entire societies use kindness as a mechanism of control. How institutions, governments, religions, corporations have learned to deploy generosity as a tool of power. How the mask of benevolence has been worn by every system that seeks to shape human behavior without resorting to visible force. Consider the welfare state. The government that provides, that gives healthcare, education, housing, food, that takes care of its citizens from cradle to grave. This is presented as kindness, as compassion, as the mark of a civilized society. And in many ways it is. It is the collective decision that no one should suffer needlessly, that basic needs should be met, that human dignity should be protected. But watch what else it does. Watch how it creates dependency, how it makes citizens reliant on the state for their survival, how it gives the state enormous power over individual lives. Because when the state controls your healthcare, your education, your housing, your food, it controls you. Not through force, through kindness, through the generosity that you cannot afford to lose, through the care that you cannot afford to anger. And so citizens become careful. They do not protest too loudly. They do not challenge too directly. They do not risk the withdrawal of the state's benevolence. They police themselves. They police each other. They enforce the norms that keep the system stable. Not because they are forced to, because they are grateful, because they are dependent, because the kindness of the state has become the foundation of their survival. And to threaten that foundation is to threaten everything. This is not an argument against welfare. This is not a political position. This is an observation about the mechanics of power, about how kindness, even when it is genuine, even when it serves real needs, also serves the interests of the giver, also creates leverage, also shapes behavior, also controls. The same pattern appears in religion. The church that feeds the hungry, that shelters the homeless, that cares for the sick, that provides community and meaning and purpose. This is kindness. This is genuine care. But watch what it purchases. Watch how it creates a population that is loyal, that is obedient, that accepts the church's authority, not just in matters of charity, but in matters of belief, behavior, morality, politics. The kindness of the church becomes the foundation of its power. The gratitude of the recipients becomes the mechanism of their control. And those who question, those who challenge, those who try to leave, face not just the loss of community but the loss of care, the loss of the safety net, the loss of the kindness that has become essential. And again, this is not about whether churches should provide charity. This is about seeing the full picture, about acknowledging that kindness is never just kindness. It is always also a relationship, a transaction, an exchange of care for loyalty, of generosity for influence, of help for control. And the more essential the kindness, the more powerful the control. Corporations have learned this lesson well. The company that provides healthcare, that offers parental leave, that creates comfortable offices with free food and gyms and meditation rooms, that talks about work-life balance and employee wellness and being a family. This is presented as kindness, as caring about employees, as being a good employer. And in some ways it is. It is the recognition that happy employees are productive employees. That care yields results. But watch what else it does. Watch how it blurs the line between work and life. How it makes the office feel like home. How it creates a culture where leaving feels like betrayal. Where the company's generosity becomes a debt that must be repaid with loyalty. With long hours. With sacrifice. with the willingness to put the company's needs above your own. And employees accept this. They are grateful. They tell themselves they are lucky to work for a company that cares, that provides, that treats them well. And they give back. They work harder. They stay later. They check emails on weekends. They blur their identity with the company's mission. They sacrifice relationships, health, personal time, all while telling themselves they are choosing this, that they are not being controlled, that this is just what it means to work for a good company, a kind company, a generous company. But the company is not kind. The company is strategic. The company has learned that the most effective way to extract maximum productivity is not through fear or force, but through care, through creating an environment where employees feel grateful, where they feel indebted, where they feel like leaving would be ungrateful, would be a betrayal of the kindness they have received. And so they stay, and they give, and they call it loyalty. They call it dedication. They call it being part of something meaningful. While the company extracts their labor, their time, their energy, their lives, all purchased with the kindness of free snacks and comfortable chairs. This is the seventh law. Institutional kindness is always strategic, always serves the interests of the institution, always creates dependency and loyalty and control. This does not mean it is not also genuine. This does not mean the people within the institution do not care. But it means we must see the full picture. Must acknowledge that care and control are not opposites. They are partners. They work together. They reinforce each other. And the most effective control is the control that feels like care. Now let us go even deeper. Let us examine the psychological mechanism that makes this all work. Why are humans so susceptible to this form of manipulation? Why does kindness create such powerful bonds? Why does generosity generate such intense loyalty? The answer lies in our evolutionary history, in the way our brains are wired, in the survival strategies that kept our ancestors alive. For most of human history, we lived in small groups, tribes, bands, communities where everyone knew everyone, where survival depended on cooperation, on reciprocity, on the ability to trust that if you help someone today, they would help you tomorrow. And so our brains evolved to track kindness, to remember who gave, to feel gratitude, to feel obligation, to feel the need to repay. This was not manipulation. This was survival. This was the social glue that held communities together, that made cooperation possible, that allowed humans to thrive in environments where individual survival was nearly impossible. But here is the problem. Our brains have not evolved much since then. We still have the same wiring, the same instincts, the same deep, visceral response to kindness. When someone helps us, something ancient activates, something that says, this person is valuable, this person is important, this person must be repaid, this person must be kept close. And we feel gratitude, we feel warmth, we feel loyalty, not because we are choosing to, but because our biology is responding to a pattern that once meant survival. And this is what makes kindness such an effective tool of manipulation. It hijacks our evolutionary wiring. It triggers responses that bypass our rational mind. We feel the gratitude before we think about whether it is warranted. We feel the obligation before we examine whether it is fair. We feel the loyalty before we question whether it is deserved. And by the time our rational mind catches up, the bond is already formed. The debt has already been created. The control has already been established. This is why it is so hard to resist. Why it is so hard to see. Why it is so hard to walk away from relationships built on kindness that binds. Because we are fighting our own biology. We are trying to override instincts that are millions of years old. We are trying to see clearly through the fog of gratitude and obligation and loyalty that our brains automatically generate in response to care. And most of us cannot do it. Most of us stay bound, stay grateful, stay loyal, even when the kindness is toxic, even when the care is control, even when the relationship is slowly destroying us. But there is hope. There is a way out. And it begins with awareness, with seeing the pattern, with naming the dynamic, with understanding that gratitude does not equal obligation, that receiving help does not mean surrendering autonomy, that being cared for does not require staying small. This is the work of consciousness, the work of bringing light to the shadow, the work of examining our relationships not through the lens of how they feel, but through the lens of what they do, what they enable, what they prevent, what they cost. Ask yourself these questions. In the relationships where you are the giver, what would happen if the receiver no longer needed you? How would you feel? Would you celebrate their independence? Or would you feel loss, rejection, a sense that something essential has been taken from you? If the answer is the latter, then your kindness is serving you more than it is serving them. Then your generosity is purchasing something. Then your care is also control. And the work is to see that, to acknowledge it, to ask yourself what need your kindness is serving, what fear it is managing, what wound it is trying to heal. And in the relationships where you are the receiver, ask yourself what you are trading for the kindness you receive. What autonomy are you surrendering? What choices are you not making? What risks are you not taking? What version of yourself are you not becoming because someone else is taking care of you? If the answer makes you uncomfortable, if you feel a tightness in your chest, a sense of being trapped, then the kindness you are receiving is binding you. Then the care is also a cage. And the work is to see that, to acknowledge it, to begin the difficult process of reclaiming your agency. Even if it means disappointing someone who has been kind. Even if it means being seen as ungrateful. Even if it means losing the comfort of being taken care of. This is not easy work. This is not comfortable work. This is the work that requires you to see yourself and others with brutal honesty. To let go of the stories that make you feel good. To acknowledge the shadows that operate beneath your conscious intentions. To accept that you are capable of manipulation, even when you believe you are being loving. To accept that you are capable of cowardice, even when you believe you are being grateful. To accept that human relationships are complex, layered, often contradictory tangles of genuine care and unconscious control, of real love and strategic manipulation, of authentic connection and mutual exploitation. And this is where we arrive at the deepest truth. The truth that makes this entire exploration worthwhile. The truth that offers a way forward. Kindness is not inherently manipulative. Generosity is not inherently controlling. Care is not inherently toxic. But they become these things when they are unconscious, when they are unexamined, when they are driven by shadow needs rather than conscious choice. The path forward is not to stop being kind. It is not to stop being generous. It is not to stop caring. The path forward is to bring consciousness to these acts, to examine why we give, to notice what we expect in return, to see when our care is serving us more than the other, to recognize when our kindness is binding rather than liberating. And on the receiving side, the path forward is to bring consciousness to what we accept, to notice when gratitude becomes obligation, to see when care becomes control, to recognize when we are trading autonomy for comfort, to understand that saying no to kindness that binds is not ingratitude. It is self-preservation. It is the assertion of your right to be whole, to be separate, to be responsible for your own life, even when that responsibility is terrifying. This is the eighth law. Conscious kindness liberates. Unconscious kindness binds. The difference is not in the act, but in the awareness, in the intention, in the willingness to examine what the kindness serves, in the ability to let go when letting go is what love requires, in the courage to receive without surrendering self, in the wisdom to give without needing to control. But let us not end here. Let us push further. Let us examine one more dimension, the dimension of societal narratives, the stories we tell about kindness, the myths we perpetuate, the ways we are taught to think about generosity and care and what it means to be good. Because these narratives shape us. They create the water we swim in. They make certain forms of manipulation invisible by framing them as virtue. We are taught from childhood that kindness is always good, that generosity is always noble, that caring for others is the highest form of love. We are taught to admire the selfless, the martyrs, the ones who give everything, who sacrifice themselves for others, who put everyone else's needs before their own. We are taught that this is what good people do, what loving people do, what worthy people do, and so we aspire to it. We try to become it. We wear the mask of the selfless giver, and we do not question what this costs, what it hides, what shadow needs it serves, because selflessness is impossible. It is a myth. It is a story we tell to make certain forms of self-interest socially acceptable. Every act of giving serves the giver in some way, even if it is just the feeling of being good, of being virtuous, of being the kind of person who helps. This is not cynicism. This is reality. This is the acknowledgement that we are all self-interested creatures, that we all have needs, that we all seek to have those needs met. And one of the most powerful needs is the need to see ourselves as good, as worthy, as valuable. And kindness is one of the most effective ways to meet that need. So when we give selflessly, we are not actually being selfless. We are meeting our need to feel good about ourselves, to see ourselves as generous, to earn the admiration of others, to create the identity of the helper, the giver, the kind one. And there is nothing wrong with this. The problem is not that giving serves us. The problem is that we pretend it does not. That we wear the mask of selflessness while our shadow collects the payment of status, admiration, control, and the satisfaction of being needed. And this pretense, this refusal to acknowledge the self-interest in our generosity, is what makes it manipulative. Because when we pretend we are giving purely, when we deny that we are getting something in return, we make it impossible for the receiver to see the transaction. We make it impossible for them to negotiate, to set boundaries, to say, I appreciate your help, but I do not want to owe you. I do not want to be controlled. I do not want to trade my autonomy for your care. Because to say that would be to accuse us of being selfish, of being manipulative, of not being the selfless giver we claim to be. And so they stay silent. They accept the kindness. They wear the chains, and they call it gratitude. This is the 9th law. The myth of selflessness enables manipulation. The pretense of pure giving creates impossible debts. The refusal to acknowledge what the giver receives makes it impossible for the receiver to negotiate the terms. Honest kindness acknowledges the exchange, acknowledges that giving serves both parties, acknowledges that care creates connection, and connection creates influence, and influence is a form of power. And when we acknowledge this, when we make it conscious, when we name it, we create the possibility for genuine relationship, for negotiation, for boundaries, for kindness that is truly liberating because it does not pretend to be something it is not. Now imagine a different world, a world where we teach children the truth about kindness, where we say, yes, help others, but also understand that helping serves you, that it makes you feel good, that it creates bonds, that it gives you influence, that it is not pure, that it is human, that it is complex, and that is okay, that the goal is not to be selfless. The goal is to be conscious, to be aware of what you are doing, to be honest about what you are getting, to give in ways that acknowledge the exchange rather than hiding it, to receive in ways that honor your autonomy rather than surrendering it. In this world, when someone helps you, you can say, thank you, I appreciate this, and I want to be clear that I am not agreeing to anything beyond this moment. I am not promising loyalty or obedience or the surrender of my choices. I am receiving your help as a gift, not as a contract. And the giver can say, I understand. I am helping because it serves me to help, because it makes me feel good, because I care about you. But I am not expecting you to owe me. I am not expecting control. I am giving freely, which means you are free to receive without obligation. This is radical honesty. This is the dismantling of the oldest manipulation. This is the possibility of kindness that does not bind, of generosity that does not control, of care that liberates rather than imprisons. But it requires us to let go of the myths, to let go of the stories about selflessness and pure love and unconditional care, to accept that all human interaction is transactional at some level, that we are all getting something, that we are all serving our needs, and that this is not a problem. This is not a failure. This is not proof that we are bad. This is just the truth of being human, of being a creature with needs and desires and fears and shadows. And when we accept this truth, when we stop pretending, when we stop performing purity, something beautiful becomes possible. Genuine connection. Not the connection of benefactor and beneficiary. Not the connection of savior and saved. But the connection of two humans who see each other clearly, who acknowledge their needs, who negotiate their boundaries, who give and receive with consciousness, who care for each other without needing to control each other, who can say, I love you, and I also need you to be separate from me. I want to help you, and I also want you to be autonomous. I am grateful for your care, and I also reserve the right to make my own choices. This is mature love. This is conscious relationship. This is the alternative to the dance of manipulation that most of us are trapped in. And it is available. It is possible, but it requires work. It requires the willingness to see your shadow, to acknowledge your needs, to let go of the identity of the good person, the kind person, the selfless person, and embrace the identity of the conscious person, the honest person, the person who gives and receives with awareness rather than pretense. Let us now turn to a specific case study, a real-world example that illustrates all of these principles in action. There is a community, a neighborhood. In this neighborhood, there is a woman named Patricia. Patricia is beloved. Everyone knows her. Everyone speaks highly of her. She is the one who organizes the block parties, who checks on elderly neighbors, who brings meals to new parents, who volunteers at the school, who is always there when someone needs help. Patricia is the heart of the community, the glue that holds it together, and everyone is grateful for her. Everyone says, "What would we do without Patricia?" But watch closely. Watch what happens when someone in the neighborhood does something Patricia disapproves of. When a family decides to paint their house a color Patricia thinks is ugly. When a neighbor plays music too loud. When someone does not contribute to the community garden Patricia started. Watch how Patricia responds. Not with anger, not with confrontation, but with a subtle withdrawal, with a cooling of her warmth, with a slight distance. And watch how the neighborhood responds. Watch how other neighbors begin to talk, to gossip, to express concern, to apply pressure. Not because Patricia asked them to, but because Patricia's disapproval has been communicated. And because everyone is so grateful to Patricia, because everyone values her kindness, because everyone fears losing her approval, they enforce her standards. They become her agents. They police each other on her behalf. This is social control through kindness. This is how a community organizes itself around a benefactor. Patricia has not demanded power. She has not sought authority. She has simply been kind, consistently, generously, visibly, and that kindness has given her enormous influence. The ability to shape behavior without ever making a rule. The ability to enforce norms without ever issuing a command. The ability to control without ever appearing to control. Because everyone is too grateful to resist, too dependent on her goodwill to challenge her, too invested in the community she has created to risk disrupting it. And Patricia may not even be aware of this. She may genuinely believe she is just being a good neighbor, just caring for her community, just doing what anyone would do. But the outcome is the same. She has become the center of power, the arbiter of acceptable behavior, the queen of a kingdom built not on force but on gratitude. And the neighborhood has become a place where conformity is enforced not by law, but by the fear of losing Patricia's kindness, by the terror of being excluded from the warmth she provides, by the knowledge that to anger Patricia is to lose not just her but the entire community that orbits around her. This is how kindness operates at the social level. This is how communities, organizations, societies create hierarchies of power without formal structures. Through the accumulation of gratitude, through the creation of dependency, through the strategic deployment of care. And the people at the center of these systems, the patricius of the world, often do not see themselves as powerful. They see themselves as servants, as helpers, as the ones who give, and in a sense they are. But they are also the ones who control, who shape, who enforce. And the community pays for their kindness with conformity, with obedience, with the surrender of autonomy to the collective norms that Patricia embodies. Now let us examine what happens when someone challenges this system. When a new family moves into the neighborhood, let us call them the Johnsons. The Johnsons are friendly but independent. They appreciate Patricia's welcome, but do not seek her approval. They make their own choices about their house, their schedule, their level of involvement in community activities. They are polite but boundaried. They do not accept every invitation. They do not participate in every event. They are present but separate, autonomous. And watch what happens. Watch how the neighborhood responds. At first, there is confusion. Why are the Johnsons not more involved? Why are they not more grateful? Patricia has been so welcoming, so kind. Why are they holding back? Then there is concern. Are the Johnsons unfriendly? Are they antisocial? Are they too good for the community? Then there is judgment. The Johnsons are cold, standoffish, not team players. They do not appreciate what they have. They do not value the community. And slowly, subtly, the Johnsons are excluded. Not formally, not overtly, but invitations become less frequent. Conversations become more superficial. The warmth that was initially offered is withdrawn, and the message is clear. If you do not participate in the system of gratitude and obligation that Patricia has created, you are not welcome. If you do not accept the kindness and the control that comes with it, you are outside. You are other. You are threat. The Johnsons have a choice. They can conform. They can increase their participation. They can seek Patricia's approval. They can accept the terms of the community and trade some of their autonomy for belonging. Or they can stay separate. They can maintain their boundaries. They can accept being outsiders. They can live in the neighborhood, but not be of the neighborhood. Both choices have costs. Both require sacrifice. And this is the reality of living in systems built on kindness. You either participate in the exchange, accepting care and surrendering autonomy, or you stay outside, maintaining autonomy and accepting isolation. There is no easy answer, no clear right choice, because humans need both. We need autonomy and we need belonging. We need independence and we need connection. And the systems we create, the communities we build, the relationships we form, are all attempts to balance these competing needs. But when the balance tips too far toward control, when kindness becomes the mechanism of conformity, when care becomes the price of belonging, we have created a cage. A comfortable cage. A cage lined with good intentions and genuine affection. But a cage nonetheless. This is the 10th law. Community kindness creates collective control. The more generous the community, the more powerful the pressure to conform. The more caring the group, the more costly the price of independence. And the people who resist, who maintain boundaries, who refuse to trade autonomy for belonging, are not antisocial. They are not ungrateful. They are simply unwilling to pay the price. They are choosing a different balance, a different set of costs. And they deserve to make that choice without being punished for it. But let us return to the individual, to the personal, to the question that has been hovering beneath this entire exploration. If kindness is manipulation, if generosity is control, if care is a cage, then what? What are we supposed to do? How are we supposed to relate to each other? How are we supposed to give and receive without falling into these patterns? How are we supposed to be good without being manipulative? The answer is not to stop being kind. The answer is not to become cynical or withholding or cold. The answer is to bring consciousness to kindness, to examine it, to understand it, to see it clearly, to give with awareness of what you are doing and why, to receive with awareness of what you are accepting and what it costs, to negotiate, to set boundaries, to be honest about the exchange, to acknowledge that all relationships involve power, that all care involves influence, that all connection involves some degree of mutual shaping, and that this is okay. This is human. This is the reality of being social creatures who need each other. The goal is not purity. The goal is consciousness. The goal is to see the shadow and integrate it rather than deny it. To acknowledge your need to be needed and then choose whether to act on it. To recognize when you are giving in order to control and then decide if that is really what you want. To notice when you are accepting care in order to avoid responsibility and then choose if that is really who you want to be. This is the work of individuation. The work Jung described as becoming whole. Not perfect, not pure, but whole, integrated, conscious of all the parts of yourself, including the parts that manipulate, that control, that use kindness as a tool of power. And when you see these parts, when you acknowledge them, you gain the ability to choose, to decide when to give and when to withhold, to decide when to receive and when to refuse, to decide when to be in relationship and when to be separate, to decide consciously rather than being driven by unconscious needs and fears and shadows. And this consciousness changes everything. It changes how you give, because when you are aware that your kindness serves you, you can give more freely. You can give without needing anything back, because you have already acknowledged what you are getting. The feeling of being good, the satisfaction of helping, the connection that is created. You are not pretending these do not exist. You are not denying your self-interest. You are simply being honest about it. And that honesty liberates both you and the receiver. Because there is no hidden debt, no invisible contract, no unspoken expectation, just the clear exchange of care for connection, of help for gratitude, of kindness for relationship, and both parties can see it, can negotiate it, can accept it or decline it with full awareness. And this consciousness changes how you receive. Because when you are aware that accepting kindness creates connection and connection creates influence, you can receive more carefully. You can set boundaries. You can say, thank you for this help, and also, I need you to know that I am not agreeing to anything beyond this moment. I am not surrendering my autonomy. I am not promising obedience. I am simply accepting this gift. And if the giver cannot accept those terms, if the giver needs more, needs control, needs the debt, then you can decline. You can say, I appreciate the offer, but I cannot accept it under those conditions. I need to maintain my independence. And this is not ingratitude. This is self-respect. This is the assertion of your right to be whole. But here is the challenge. Here is why this work is so difficult. Because most people are not conscious. Most people are not doing this work. Most people are operating from shadow, from unconscious needs and fears and patterns. And so when you become conscious, when you start setting boundaries, when you start naming the dynamics, you become a threat. You become the person who is breaking the unspoken rules, who is refusing to play the game, who is seeing what is not supposed to be seen. And people will resist. They will be hurt. They will be angry. They will accuse you of being ungrateful, selfish, cold, damaged. They will try to pull you back into the dance, back into the patterns, back into the comfortable unconsciousness where everyone pretends that kindness is pure and relationships are simple and love is unconditional. And you will have to decide. Do you stay conscious and accept the cost? Do you maintain your boundaries and accept being misunderstood? Do you keep seeing clearly even when everyone around you is insisting that you are seeing wrong? Or do you go back to sleep? Do you put the mask back on? Do you return to the comfortable lies that make relationships easier but keep you trapped? This is the hero's journey. This is the path of individuation. This is the choice that every conscious person must make. And there is no right answer. There is only your answer. The answer that fits your life, your values, your capacity for discomfort, your need for authenticity versus your need for belonging. And whatever you choose, there will be costs. There will be sacrifices. There will be losses. Because consciousness is not free. It is not easy. It is not comfortable. But it is real. It is honest. It is whole. And for some of us, that is worth everything. Let us now explore a final dimension. The dimension of historical examples. Of figures who understood this dynamic and used it with extraordinary effectiveness. Because this is not theory. This is not abstract philosophy. This is the operating system of human civilization. And the people who have shaped history, who have built empires and movements and religions, have all understood the power of kindness as manipulation. Consider Mahatma Gandhi, a man celebrated for his nonviolence, his compassion, his moral authority. Gandhi understood power. He understood that the British Empire could not be defeated through violence, that military resistance would be crushed. But he also understood that empires need cooperation, that they need the colonized to participate in their own subjugation. And so Gandhi deployed a different weapon, moral authority. He positioned himself and the independence movement as morally superior, as suffering, as victims of injustice who responded not with violence but with dignity, with peaceful resistance, with kindness even toward their oppressors. And this was brilliant, because it made the British the villains. It made their violence visible and unjustifiable. It created sympathy for the Indian cause not just in India but around the world. It made continued colonization morally untenable. Gandhi did not defeat the British with force. He defeated them with the moral weight of suffering met with grace, of injustice met with dignity, of violence met with nonviolence. He made the British feel guilty. He made them feel like the bad guys. And guilt is a powerful motivator. Guilt creates the need to make amends, to change behavior, to surrender power in order to restore moral equilibrium. This is kindness as strategy. This is the deployment of moral superiority as a weapon. And it worked. Not because Gandhi was manipulating in a cynical sense. His commitment to nonviolence was genuine. His suffering was real. His moral convictions were authentic. But the outcome was strategic. The effect was manipulative. The British were controlled not by force, but by the moral pressure of facing an opponent who refused to be the enemy they needed, who refused to justify their violence, who responded to cruelty with kindness and made that kindness unbearable to witness. Or consider Mother Teresa, a woman who devoted her life to caring for the dying poor of Calcutta, who lived in poverty herself, who gave everything to those who had nothing. Mother Teresa is held up as a saint, as the embodiment of selfless love, as proof that pure goodness exists. But look closer. Look at what her kindness accomplished. It made the Catholic Church look good. It created a narrative of Christian charity that served the Church's interests. It generated donations, attention, influence. It made Mother Teresa herself a global figure, a celebrity, a brand. Her kindness was real. Her suffering was real. Her devotion was real. But it also served institutional interests. It also created power. It also functioned as a form of control over the narrative about poverty, about charity, about what it means to help. Critics have pointed out that Mother Teresa's homes provided minimal medical care, that they emphasized spiritual comfort over physical healing, that they sometimes prioritized conversion over treatment, that the kindness offered was conditional, that it came with the expectation of accepting Catholic doctrine, of dying as a Christian, of surrendering not just your body, but your soul to the care of the Church. And this is the shadow of institutional kindness. The care that is offered is real, but it is also strategic. It serves the institution. It advances the mission. It creates loyalty and gratitude and the expansion of influence. This is not to diminish the good that was done. This is not to say that Gandhi and Mother Teresa were villains. They were not. They were complex human beings whose actions had multiple dimensions, multiple motivations, multiple outcomes. And that is the point. That is what we must see. That kindness is never simple. That it always operates on multiple levels. That it can be genuine and strategic, real and manipulative, caring and controlling, all at the same time. And when we refuse to see this complexity, when we insist on simple narratives of good and evil, of pure motives and corrupt motives, we miss the truth. We miss the reality of how power operates, how influence is built, how human behavior is shaped. Now let us bring this to the present, to the world we live in now, to the systems and structures and relationships that define contemporary life. Look at social media. Look at the influencers who share their lives, who offer advice, who create content that helps, that inspires, that entertains. They are kind. They are generous. They give their time, their knowledge, their vulnerability, and they ask for nothing in return, except your attention, except your engagement, except your loyalty, except your willingness to watch their ads, buy their products, support their sponsors. The kindness is real. The help is genuine, but it is also a business model. It is also a strategy for building an audience, for creating influence, for monetizing attention. And we accept this. We participate willingly. We follow. We like. We share. We feel grateful for the free content, for the inspiration, for the sense of connection. And we do not see the exchange. We do not see that we are paying, not with money, with attention, with data, with the shaping of our desires and beliefs and behaviors, with the gradual alignment of our values with the values of the influencers we follow, with the subtle control that comes from trusting someone, from feeling grateful to someone, from wanting to please someone who has been kind to us. This is the contemporary form of the oldest manipulation. Kindness deployed at scale, generosity as a business model, care as a mechanism for building audiences and shaping behavior and extracting value. And it works. It works brilliantly, because we do not resist kindness. We do not question generosity. We do not see care as control. We see it as connection, as relationship, as proof that someone cares about us. And so we give them power. We give them influence. We give them access to our minds and hearts and wallets, all purchased with the kindness of free content. Or look at the wellness industry, the coaches and therapists and gurus who offer to help you heal, to help you grow, to help you become your best self. They are kind. They are caring. They listen. They validate. They support. And they charge. They charge a lot. For courses. For programs. For one-on-one sessions. For access to their wisdom. And we pay. We pay because we are grateful. Because they have helped us. Because they have been kind. And we do not see that the help creates dependency. That the kindness creates loyalty. That the care creates a business relationship where we keep coming back. Keep paying. Keep needing. Because the healing is always incomplete. The growth is always ongoing. The journey is always continuing. And the guide is always necessary. This is not to say that all coaches and therapists are manipulative. Many are genuine. Many truly want to help. Many do help. But the structure itself creates the potential for manipulation. The dynamic itself creates dependency. The relationship itself involves power. And when we do not see this, when we do not acknowledge it, when we do not set boundaries, we can find ourselves trapped. Spending money we do not have. Investing time we cannot afford. Surrendering our autonomy to someone who claims to know better. Who claims to have the answers. Who claims to care. And maybe they do care. But they also benefit. They also profit. They also gain power. And we need to see both. We need to hold both. We need to be grateful for the help and also aware of the cost. This is the 11th law. In a capitalist system, kindness becomes a commodity. Care becomes a service. Generosity becomes a marketing strategy. And the line between genuine help and strategic manipulation becomes impossible to see. Because the helper may be genuine, may truly care, may truly want to help, but they also need to make a living. They also need to build a business. They also need to create loyalty and repeat customers and word-of-mouth referrals. And so the care is real and strategic. The kindness is genuine and calculated. The help is authentic and also a product. And we must learn to navigate this. To receive help without surrendering critical thinking. To be grateful without becoming dependent. To pay for services without confusing transaction with relationship. Now we arrive at the final question. The question that has been building throughout this entire exploration. What do we do with this knowledge? How do we live with the awareness that kindness is manipulation? That generosity is control? That care is power? Do we become cynical? Do we stop trusting? Do we refuse all help and isolate ourselves in the name of autonomy? Or do we find a different way? A way that acknowledges the complexity without collapsing into simplicity? A way that sees the shadow without being consumed by it? A way that allows for connection without naivety? For gratitude without obligation? For care without control? The answer is integration. The answer is holding paradox. The answer is accepting that kindness is both genuine and strategic. That generosity is both caring and controlling. That relationships are both loving and transactional. That humans are both capable of authentic connection and incapable of pure motives. And that this is okay. This is not a problem to solve. This is reality to accept. This is the human condition. We are complex. We are contradictory. We are capable of great love and subtle manipulation. Often in the same act. Often in the same moment. And the work is not to become pure. The work is to become conscious, to see what we are doing, to acknowledge what we are getting, to be honest about the exchange, and to choose consciously, to choose with awareness, to choose with integrity. This means giving kindness that you can afford to give, that does not deplete you, that does not require repayment, that you can offer freely and then let go. If you cannot let go, if you need something back, then be honest about that. Say, I can help you. And I need you to know that I will feel hurt if you do not show gratitude. I will feel rejected if you become independent. I will feel used if you do not reciprocate. And then let the other person decide. Let them choose whether to accept help under those conditions. Let them negotiate. Let them set boundaries. Let them be autonomous even in the act of receiving care. And this means receiving kindness with awareness, with gratitude but not obligation, with appreciation but not surrender. With the understanding that accepting help creates connection, and connection involves influence, and influence is a form of power. And being willing to say, thank you for this help, and also, I need to maintain my autonomy. I need to make my own choices. I need to be separate even as we are connected. And if the giver cannot accept that, if the giver needs more, needs control, needs the debt, then being willing to decline. To say, I cannot accept this help under these conditions. I need to find another way. And this is not ingratitude. This is self-preservation. This is the assertion of your right to be whole. This is mature relationship. This is conscious connection. This is the alternative to the unconscious dance of manipulation that most of us are trapped in. And it is hard. It is uncomfortable. It requires constant vigilance, constant honesty, constant negotiation. It requires letting go of the fantasy of unconditional love, of selfless care, of pure generosity. It requires accepting that all love is conditional. All care has limits. All generosity serves the giver. And that this does not make it less valuable. It makes it real. It makes it human. It makes it something we can actually achieve, rather than an impossible ideal that we pretend to embody while our shadows operate beneath. And so we return to where we began, to the moment when a hand reaches toward you with something you need. Water when you are thirsty. Shelter when you are cold. Words when you are breaking. And in that moment, you have a choice. You can receive unconsciously, accepting the help and the invisible strings that come with it, accepting the debt, accepting the obligation, accepting the subtle control, or you can receive consciously, with gratitude and boundaries, with appreciation and autonomy, with the awareness that this help creates connection, and connection involves power, and power must be negotiated. And if you are the one offering the hand, you have a choice. You can give unconsciously, believing you are being purely kind while your shadow collects payment in the form of gratitude, loyalty, control. Or you can give consciously, with awareness of what you are doing and why, with honesty about what you are getting, with the willingness to let go, to give freely, to celebrate when your help is no longer needed, to see the receiver's independence not as rejection but as success, as the natural outcome of care that liberates rather than binds. This is the work. This is the path. This is the journey from unconscious manipulation to conscious relationship, from shadow to integration, from pretense to authenticity, and it is available to all of us, but it requires courage. The courage to see yourself clearly, to acknowledge your shadow, to admit your needs, to let go of the identity of the good person and embrace the identity of the whole person. The person who is capable of both love and manipulation, both generosity and control, both care and self-interest, and who chooses moment by moment which to embody, which to act from, which to bring into the light. Because that is the secret, that is the key, that is the way out of the oldest manipulation. Not to stop being kind, but to bring consciousness to kindness. Not to stop being generous, but to bring honesty to generosity. Not to stop caring, but to bring awareness to care. To see what you are doing, to acknowledge what you are getting, to name the exchange, to negotiate the terms, to give and receive with eyes open, with hearts honest, with relationships that are real rather than ideal, messy rather than pure, human rather than divine. And when we do this, when we bring this level of consciousness to our relationships, something shifts. The manipulation loses its power, not because it disappears, but because it is seen. And what is seen can be negotiated, can be challenged, can be changed. The invisible strings become visible, and visible strings can be cut, or they can be acknowledged, or they can be renegotiated, but they can no longer operate in darkness. They can no longer control without consent. They can no longer bind without awareness. This is liberation, not from kindness, but from unconscious kindness, not from generosity, but from strategic generosity that pretends to be pure, not from care, but from care that is also control. This is the possibility of genuine relationship, of authentic connection, of love that is real because it is honest, because it acknowledges its limits, because it does not pretend to be what it is not, because it accepts that humans are complex, contradictory, capable of both light and shadow, and that the goal is not to eliminate the shadow but to integrate it, to see it, to own it, to choose consciously whether to act from it or not. And this brings us to the final truth, the truth that redeems this entire exploration, the truth that makes this knowledge bearable rather than crushing. Kindness is manipulation, but manipulation is not inherently evil. It is a tool, a mechanism, a way that humans influence each other. And like all tools, it can be used consciously or unconsciously. It can be used to harm or to help. It can be used to bind or to liberate. The difference is not in the tool. The difference is in the awareness of the one wielding it. Conscious manipulation is negotiation, is honest influence, is the acknowledgement that we all shape each other, that we all have needs, that we all seek to have those needs met through relationship, and that this is okay. This is human. This is the reality of being social creatures. The problem is not that we influence each other. The problem is that we pretend we do not, that we hide the influence behind masks of purity, behind claims of selflessness, behind the pretense that our kindness is unconditional when it is always, always conditional, always serving us in some way, always getting us something, even if it is just the feeling of being good. And so the invitation is this: stop pretending, stop performing purity, stop wearing the mask of the selfless giver or the grateful receiver. Take off the mask. Look at what is underneath. Look at your needs, your fears, your desires, your shadow, and then choose. Choose to give in ways that acknowledge the exchange. Choose to receive in ways that maintain your autonomy. Choose to be in relationship with honesty rather than pretense, with awareness rather than unconsciousness, with integrity rather than performance. This is the path of individuation. This is the journey Jung described. This is the work of becoming whole. And it is the most important work you will ever do, because everything else in your life depends on it. Your relationships, your sense of self, your ability to connect authentically, your capacity to give and receive without manipulation, your freedom from the invisible strings that bind most of humanity, your liberation from the oldest manipulation, the manipulation of kindness. But let us be clear, this is not a one-time realization. This is not a destination you arrive at and then rest. This is ongoing work, daily work, moment-by-moment work, because the shadow does not disappear. The unconscious patterns do not vanish. The temptation to manipulate, to control, to use kindness as a tool of power does not go away. It is always there, always operating, always ready to take over when you are not paying attention. And so the work is to keep paying attention, to keep seeing, to keep choosing, to keep bringing consciousness to your actions, to keep examining your motives, to keep negotiating your relationships, to keep being honest even when honesty is uncomfortable, even when it costs you, even when it would be easier to put the mask back on and pretend. This is the price of consciousness. This is the cost of integration. This is what it means to be awake in a world where most people are asleep, where most people are operating from shadow, where most people are wearing masks and performing roles and participating in unconscious dances of manipulation. And you will be tempted to go back to sleep, to rejoindre la danse, to put the mask back on, because consciousness is lonely, because honesty is isolating, because most people do not want to see what you see, do not want to acknowledge what you acknowledge, do not want to do the work you are doing, and they will resist you, they will misunderstand you, they will accuse you of being cynical, cold, ungrateful, damaged. They will try to pull you back into the comfortable unconsciousness where everyone pretends that kindness is pure and relationships are simple and love is unconditional. And you will have to decide, again and again, whether to stay conscious or go back to sleep, whether to keep seeing or close your eyes, whether to keep being honest or return to pretense. And there is no judgment either way. There is no right answer. There is only your answer. The answer that fits your life, your capacity, your values, your willingness to pay the price of consciousness. And whatever you choose, know that it is enough. Know that you are enough. Know that the work you have done, the seeing you have achieved, the awareness you have cultivated is valuable, is meaningful, is real. Even if you choose to set it down, even if you choose to rest, even if you choose to return to the comfort of unconsciousness for a while. Because consciousness is not all or nothing. It is not permanent or lost. It is a practice, a choice, a moment-by-moment decision to see or not see, to acknowledge or deny, to be honest or pretend. And you get to make that choice, again and again, for the rest of your life.